The first time the earth said my name, it came through a needle. The seismograph pen shouldn't have paused, but it did, mid-tremor, steadying just long enough to carve 4 peaks. Nat T. Then the paper tore. The bunker went silent again, fans breathing, circuits ticking, concrete groaning like a body remembering its bones. My name's Dr. Nathan Rourke, lead seismologist for Station 9, a facility that officially doesn't exist. We sit 5 stories beneath the Nevada desert, listening to what the world hides under its skin. Out there, dust, sky, nothing. Down here, miles of bedrock, a humming grid of old Cold War servers, and one man who stopped trusting silence weeks ago. The bunker was built for earthquake surveillance, at least that's what the paperwork says. But we're not near any active faults. We're near something else. It started 3 nights in. A low rhythmic tremor rolled through the array, too uniform for a quake, too soft for mining. It repeated every 6 hours, a heartbeat under the Pacific. I logged it, called upstairs. "Director Halverson," I said, "we've got a recurring—" "You're not the first to notice," he interrupted. "Keep the log clean." That phrase, "keep the log clean," became my cage. But the pulse didn't stop. Each night at 1:56, the array hummed, precise as clockwork. I started noticing strange bleed-throughs, lights dimming, compasses drifting, static that whispered before the pulse hit. Once, the metal desk vibrated in perfect sync with my own pulse. I began mapping the tremor manually, pen and paper only, as ordered. The data pointed nowhere on the map, but deep below it. When I isolated the waveform and played it through the speaker, I heard something under the noise. A tone. Too long, too deliberate, like a vowel stretched across miles of stone. I told myself it was interference, until the tone wavered and almost formed a consonant. My mouth moved with it, uninvited. By the 5th pulse, I'd stopped sleeping. I kept the lights low, the recorder running. The bunker started to feel alive, ducts exhaling, steel contracting, floor humming underfoot. And beneath it all, that sound, steady, patient. Then one night the pulse came early. Instruments flared red. The waveform twisted, no longer a single rhythm but 2. A second signal was answering from somewhere east, as if the first had been heard. The tones braided together, forming a perfect interference pattern, almost like language. I went to the backup room, a corridor I wasn't cleared for, and found a locked door labeled Project H-. The last letters had been scratched out with something sharp. A faint draft came through the seams, warm and slow like breath. I returned to the main lab, palms slick, heart pounding in my ears. The next pulse hit right on schedule. The paper roll advanced on its own, the pen scratching symbols that weren't numbers, weren't waves, just shapes that looked deliberate. When it finished, I tore the strip free. Across it, faint but unmistakable, was my name. Nathan. I stared until the ink bled through the paper. Somewhere deep in the concrete, a low voice, or maybe just the earth shifting, seemed to whisper back, "Stop listening." And I realized then, whatever it was we were measuring, it was listening too. I stopped logging the pulses the way they wanted. The clean version went into the system. The real one lived in a leather notebook under my bunk, filled with shaking lines and hours circled like curses. The pattern was evolving. The 6-hour rhythm held, but new tremors began to mirror it, half a world apart, perfectly synchronized. It was as if something vast beneath the crust was flexing, using the planet's bones like muscle. On my monitors, the data formed lattices, grid-like bursts linking oceans to deserts, ridges to trenches. The Earth was humming in chords. When I overlaid the signatures from the last 10 events, they aligned into repeating clusters that looked intentional. At 3 o'clock, I sent a coded query through the secure channel requesting data from other listening posts. 3 bounced back, redacted. 1 responded with a single attachment. Project Heimdall. Internal use only. It wasn't supposed to exist. The file was mostly black bars and old schematics, maps of seismic nodes arranged in patterns no fault system should follow. But one line near the bottom stayed readable. Do not attempt to correlate the events. Observation increases activity. The fluorescent lights above me flickered as if in agreement. The air grew colder, metallic, charged with static. For the first time, the bunker didn't feel isolated. It felt occupied. That night I heard a new sound under the pulse. Not random noise, speech patterns. Short bursts, pauses, rise and fall. The cadence of language stripped of words. I recorded 30 seconds and ran it through spectral analysis. The translation output was nonsense at first, binary gibberish. But then letters began to resolve. Not words, names, coordinates, dates. One of the dates was today. I called Halverson. He didn't pick up. The line clicked, and the pulse came through instead, louder now, layered with something like breathing. When it ended, the monitors showed a tremor originating beneath this facility. I went to the maintenance level again. The keypad light was already green this time. Inside, dust-covered racks of analog machines, tape reels and dials frozen mid-measurement. A metal sign on the wall read, Seismic Anomaly Control, Estenute, 1974. Someone had scrawled beneath it in grease pencil, It's not an anomaly if it talks back. I pressed play on one of the old recorders. The tape hissed, then filled the room with a slow, pulsing tone identical to mine. After several loops, a voice, distorted, metallic but unmistakably human, spoke over it. Subject 9 responding. Communication stable. Entity coherent. The reel stopped. The silence that followed felt alive, vibrating through the soles of my boots. I turned to leave, then another reel, untouched, began to spin on its own. Dr. Rourke, it whispered in perfect timing with the pulse. Stop listening. You're feeding it. I stumbled back, ripping the power from the wall. The tone didn't stop. It had moved past the speakers into the walls themselves. The metal vibrated like a tuning fork struck from below. Upstairs, every screen went white. The system clock froze at 1:56, repeating the same frame over and over, a seismic echo that didn't decay. Then, for the briefest second, the signal displayed something new. A single image, pixelated but unmistakable. A human face, eyes closed as if dreaming beneath stone. I stared, frozen, as the pulse slowed to match my heartbeat. And in the reflection of the monitor behind me, the glass in the observation window shifted just slightly, like the bunker itself was breathing in. The face stayed on the screen for 7 seconds before vanishing into static. I sat there long after, waiting for it to return, but the monitors only showed the slow crawl of background noise. When I printed the seismic data from that night, the waveform looked like handwriting. The peaks formed symbols evenly spaced, repeating in patterns that felt less random and more like sentences. I'd stopped thinking of them as tremors. They were messages. I reopened the Project Heimdall file and dug deeper through the blacked-out pages. Behind a layer of encoded metadata, I found an older section declassified for internal training use. The language was bureaucratic, but the meaning was clear. In 1974, deep ocean drilling at Site H Delta encountered a non-geological formation at 18 kilometers below sea level. Subject emitted harmonic pressure waves consistent with communication attempts. Contact maintained via seismic relay. Entity designated Heimdall. The bunker wasn't built to study earthquakes. It was built to listen to something buried beneath them. The more I read, the more wrong the world felt. Every few decades, the pulses had changed frequency, shifting upward, growing closer to the surface. The file ended with a warning, dated 2003. Cease observation until further notice. Activity correlates directly with monitoring bandwidth. Observation increases activity. Watching it wakes it. The lights dimmed again. The hum in the walls thickened until it became a pressure behind my eyes. I shut down the main monitors, but the tone continued through the backup speakers, too deep to be stopped by power. I started hearing the rhythm even without equipment. In my heartbeat, in the drip of the sink, in the blinking red light above the exit. Everything had fallen into sync with the signal. Then came the smell, ozone and earth after rain. The concrete floor trembled in a slow, deliberate rhythm like a giant breathing beneath it. The ceiling creaked once and dust sifted down fine as ash. I called Halverson again. This time someone else answered, a woman's voice, flat, rehearsed. Station 9 communications are restricted. Disconnect now. Who is this? I asked. Stop transmitting, she said. The entity localizes attention through resonance. You're not just recording it anymore. You're amplifying it. The line went dead. I turned on the recorder and played back the last pulse. I wanted to prove them wrong, to show that this was data, not delusion. But as the tape wound forward, the tone changed. I hadn't altered anything, yet new harmonics were present, higher frequencies weaving through, forming words. Nathan. I froze. The pitch climbed, the voice repeated, layered over itself, louder, closer. I slammed the stop button, but the reel kept spinning, faster and faster until the tape snapped. From the corner of the room, a faint vibration spread through the air ducts, rhythmic, almost eager. The whole bunker was resonating with the same energy. Then, through the control glass, I saw movement in the dark corridor. Just a shadow at first, then something shifting against the light, not walking but flowing, like liquid darkness dragging shape out of itself. It reached the glass and paused, mirroring me. For one terrible moment, I thought it was my reflection, until it blinked. The intercom crackled. Halverson's voice returned, distorted by static. Rourke, shut it down. You're in the node's convergence path. Node. It's under you, he said. You're not monitoring it. It's monitoring through you. Disconnect everything. But I couldn't. The walls were pulsing. Every gauge, every dial, every heartbeat in my skull throbbed in unison. I felt the vibration in my teeth, in my lungs, in the spaces between my thoughts. Then came the realization that chilled me more than the sound ever could. We hadn't found Heimdall. It had built the network itself. Every sensor, every relay, every bunker, each a nerve ending for something vast and buried. We were never the observers. We were the instruments. The next pulse hit harder than any before. The power failed. In the dark, I saw the green glow of the oscilloscope still alive on backup battery. Its display drew a single line that curved like a smile, and somewhere below, the earth exhaled, slow, patient, awake. The emergency lights came on, red, low, pulsing like a wound. The air smelled burned, metallic, as if the wiring itself had been breathing too long. Every screen was dead except the oscilloscope, still drawing that lazy, oscillating curve. The pulse was faster now. The 6-hour pattern had collapsed to minutes. Each new wave hit like a deep breath from beneath the floor. I tried shutting the main breaker, but the vibration didn't fade. It was inside the concrete, in the steel. The walls themselves were resonating. Halverson's last words echoed through my head. "It's under you." The corridor leading to the maintenance level was darker than before. The keypad no longer asked for a code. It glowed green, waiting. I should have left. I should have sealed the door and waited for extraction that wasn't coming. But curiosity is stronger than fear when you've already ruined everything. I stepped through. The air below was damp, warmer, humming with low frequencies that felt more felt than heard. My flashlight beam trembled across pipes beaded with condensation. The hum followed me like a voice half-formed. The deeper I went, the more it felt alive. The floor dipped gently downward, concrete giving way to carved stone, old, much older than the facility. My radio hissed with bursts of static that sometimes shaped my name. "Nathan." A whisper threaded through the static, female, low, calm. "You've come to see it." The tunnel opened into a chamber the size of a cathedral. At the center was a pit, perfectly round, lined with metal that shimmered like wet skin. My instruments said we were kilometers deep. The hum came from within it, steady and deliberate, and the walls vibrated like the inside of a throat. I approached the edge. Looking down was like staring into weather. Shifting layers of light and dark, fluid but dense. I tossed a bolt into the pit. It fell, slowed, and dissolved mid-air like gravity had given up. Along the walls were dozens of shapes, hatches, old equipment welded into the rock. Human skeletons lay half-buried, fused into the concrete, bones threaded with fine wires leading into the pit. The hum deepened. My flashlight flickered. A shape rose from below, not solid but defined by distortion, a surface bending the air around it. The longer I stared, the more it seemed to form faces, hundreds overlapping, all mid-breath. My recorder, still strapped to my chest, began to spin again. The voice that came through was mine. "Observation increases activity. You're listening now, Nathan. You're part of the network." The voice overlapped itself, repeating from a dozen directions, merging with the pulse until the words blurred. My vision swam. My heartbeat matched it perfectly. I stumbled back toward the stairwell, but the tunnel was breathing, expanding, contracting. Dust fell in soft cascades. From the far wall, the letters I'd seen scratched months ago, Project H, stretched, twisting into new words as if the concrete were soft clay. "Hear me." Something moved under the floor, pushing the surface upward. The air grew hot. I ran. My boots struck concrete. My boots struck concrete that flexed under each step. The hum followed, faster, closer, not chasing but sinking. By the time I reached the upper corridor, the whole bunker was alive. Pipes throbbed, fluorescents rattled in their sockets. The intercoms whispered fragments of my own recordings, looping, mutating. "It's awake. Don't make it worse. Keep the log clean." I reached the lab and slammed the blast door shut. The instruments were lighting up one by one, though I hadn't powered them. Every line on the graphs converged toward a single point, the bunker itself. The pulse grew louder until I could see the vibrations rippling in the air. Papers lifted off the desk, fluttering in the pressure. Then came the first crack, thin and high, like glass giving way under slow strain. The floor shifted an inch. Beneath me, something vast turned over. I looked to the oscilloscope. The line wasn't a line anymore. It was a perfect spiral, tight, symmetrical, expanding outward. The walls moaned, and from the speakers came a final message. Calm, human, unmistakably Halverson's voice. "It's using you as the transmitter now." The hum resolved into a single sustained note, deep enough to blur thought. For one last moment, everything stopped. The lights, the vibration, even the sound. Then the ground exhaled. The exhale wasn't sound so much as permission. Everything that could move did. Dust lifting in sheets, papers rising, cables bowing toward the floor like grass in wind. The blast door shivered against its frame. In the red emergency wash, the lab looked submerged. Alarms booted themselves and died. The only living thing was the pulse, no longer on a 6-hour leash, now a continuous pressure, a single held note slipping upward by bare sense. The graphs smeared into white. The oscilloscope's spiral widened until the line walked off its screen. I hit the master kill and threw the auxiliary. Darkness. It didn't matter. The tone was in the ribs of the place, in my molars, in the tiny tremors of my eyelids. I couldn't tell if I was hearing it or being it. The uplink console flickered alive on battery, cycling through channels I'd never seen. Stations I didn't know existed answered with the same pattern: Alaska, Madagascar, the mid-Atlantic ridge. Not words, but the shape of words. Voices layered in the carrier like faces in rain. The printer, dead a moment ago, clawed a sheet through its teeth. Global Bulletin, microseism activity rising, / coastal anomalies, / compass drift reported. Under the text, the paper bled a darker stripe, the waveform branded into pulp. I needed a counter. You don't stop a tone, you cancel it. Phase against phase, wave against wave. I dragged the old signal generator out from under a bench, tuned it by muscle memory, and lifted the dial until the floor softened under my boots. The generator burred, a drowsy analog cat, and for the first time in hours the pressure loosened. The fluorescent housings stilled. My heartbeat staggered out of sync. For 3 breaths. The entity matched me. It curled around my frequency and swallowed it, perfect and patient. The generator screamed, the smell of varnish filled the room, and the fuse went black with a little sigh. The tone returned, stronger for the trick I'd taught it. On the wall the clock had surrendered to 1:56, the old time, a fossil caught in amber. In the glass of the oscilloscope I saw myself in emergency red, sweat bright, eyes wrong, and behind that reflection, a second face, with my features softened as if seen through weathered stone. It wasn't a vision, it was an overlay. The network had decided I was a diagram. The intercom crackled. "Rourke, Halverson, almost normal, like this was a meeting room and not a throat. Listen. You can't out-talk it. You have to starve it." "How?" "Observation is a conduit. Shut down everything that can notice. Sensors, glass, moving tape, and," he hesitated, "and the last resonator. You." He didn't say heart, but I heard the word anyway. There's a small chamber off the comms room, an RF test booth from the old days. Copper mesh in the walls, rubber seals, a heavy door that shuts like confession. I'd stood in it twice for maintenance and hated how my ears felt, emptied, like they were waiting for a sound that couldn't arrive. I hauled the portable recorder and the Heimdall file into the booth. The tone dropped a fraction as I stepped through, like a storm noticing a closed window. I shut the door and threw the latches. The air changed, not quiet exactly, the thinner. My breath was too loud, my pulse too loud. I pressed record out of habit and then stopped, shame crawling up my throat. Even this was a mouth. I set the recorder down and turned it off. I killed the standby light. I covered the status LED with tape, though no one could see it but me. A thought came, small and sharp. Stop listening. Not the way a supervisor says it, the way a surgeon says it when the only tool left is a blade. I lay on the mesh bench and counted my heart. It answered the pulse like a student repeating after a teacher. I tried to break rhythm, holding the inhale, chopping the exhale, anything to make the pattern ugly. For a few seconds, my chest thrummed against the world and not with it. The pressure outside thinned and the booth's rubber seals creaked in relief. Then my body did the thing bodies do. It found the easier time. Sink. The tone climbed my sternum and wore it like an instrument. The red handset on the wall rang. No power should have fed it. I picked it up anyway. Halverson's voice was there, quieter. Oxygen valve, upper left. Starve the blood. Slow the metronome. That'll not forever, he said. Long enough. I found the valve by touch. The booth's air eased to thin mountain. The heart can't perform in an empty theater. Mine stuttered, stumbled, downshifted. The pulse outside hesitated, not stopped, but less certain. The bunker's bones groaned like old ships turning in sleep. I started talking, because last logs are a habit baked into anyone who's ever watched a needle twitch. The recorder was off. The words bounced off copper and came back with the holes in them showing. This is Dr. Nathan Rourke at Station 9. Heimdall, if it was ever that, has adapted. It uses attention like oxygen. If you're hearing this, you're already part of the circuit. The only counter I've found is refusal. Silence that isn't absence but denial. Don't map it. Don't model it. Don't give it a shape to inhabit. I swallowed. The pulse shivered. My fingers tingled. If you've built rooms like this, use them. Fewer ears, fewer mirrors. Something touched the wall outside. The copper sang, high and thin. The tone pressed in, patient as a tide. Halverson, I said into the empty handset. If you can cut the uplinks, do it. Make the network deaf. His answer came like breath on glass. Already gone. A pause, softer. I'm sorry, son. I kept the log clean, I said, and laughed because it hurt less than the truth. The booth dimmed at the edges. My heartbeat, insulted, shrank to a smaller word. The world slipped a half step away. The tone outside hunted for me and missed, once, twice, then circled back with ancient care. I lay there and counted down. When I ran out of numbers, I counted anyway. The pulse moved through me, and I was too far to answer. For a moment that might have been mercy. It was only the earth again. Rock settling, heat moving, the slow music of heavy things. Something banged the door. The latch held. I don't know how long the quiet lasted, long enough for my heart to forget its lesson and try to teach the old one again. Long enough for the pressure to find the seam in the seal and draw a line through it like a finger in dust. When I could stand, I turned the recorder on one last time, let its little red eye open, and set it on the floor. I didn't speak. I just breathed the way a person breathes when no one is counting with them. I opened the door and stepped into whatever the bunker was now. If this makes it out at all, understand. There isn't a monster under the crust in the way stories like to give teeth to the dark. there is attention, and there is the shape attention makes when it has nowhere else to go. We built a cathedral of needles and asked the ground to sing. It learned our hymn. My name is Nathan Rourke. I am closing the log. Somewhere in a room you trust, a graph will tremble, a tone will lengthen. You'll feel your pulse look up. If you do nothing, it will say your name back to you in the language of long things. If you refuse, if you do not listen, it will pass. Hold your breath. Now exhale. If you made it this far into the story, you're one of us now. Someone who listens when the world goes quiet. But before you go, do me a favor. Don't let the silence take you. If you enjoyed I Monitored Earthquakes from a Secret Bunker and want more stories that dig into the dark places we're not supposed to see, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Every share, every comment, every click helps keep this channel alive and helps new listeners find their way down here, beneath the noise. Until next time, stay curious. But whatever you do, don't listen too closely.